American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesdays come down. Throw it all away.
Hey, this is Joe from History for Jerks. Amy and I took a week off this week. It's a lot of work doing all this research for a podcast, so we didn't want to let you down, though. Thank you, listeners, so much for being here. So here's a little tiny blast from the past. This is from episode 2, our second ever episode. I just cut out the little bit where Amy talks about Jeffrey Dahmer, and I just dropped it in here as a little special bonus episode, so you don't have to sift through the whole thing or go all the way back to the second episode. Just thought Jeffrey Dahmer's a popular one, so let's just put this little thing out for you to just take a little trek down memory lane and listen to what we sound like when we first started. Don't we sound so young? Enjoy. We'll see you next week. We love you, Tom Hanks.
On July 22nd, 1991.
Yeah.
There were these two police officers in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they were driving around.
Let's set the scene. July 22nd.
1991.
On the radio was Bryan Adams.
Yep.
Jesus Jones, right here, right now.
Oh, yeah.
Or EMF's Unbelievable.
And so the cops are driving around. This is a high crime area in Milwaukee, and it was real hot that night. Around midnight, as they're in their car, they see this short, little wiry black man with a handcuff dangling from his wrist. And
just walking?
No, he's running. They assume that he's escaped from another policeman, so they ask him what he was doing. And he starts to pour out this tale about this weird dude who put this cuff on him in his apartment, and this man turned out to be 32-year-old Tracy Edwards. They thought, oh, it's just some gay couple being weirdos, like they used to think back then.
Right.
And
gays were weird. They just got off the list.
They thought they ought to check out this man that had cuffed Edwards, who lived at the Oxford Apartments at 924 North 25th Street. The door to apartment 213 was opened by this nice-looking 31-year-old blonde man. He was very calm and rational and offered to go get the key to the handcuffs that were in his bedroom. And then Edwards remembered that the knife that he was threatened with was in the bedroom. So he starts saying, don't let him go in there. The knife's in there. And so one of the officers decides to go in the bedroom himself and notices a bunch of photos lying around that contain pictures of dismembered human bodies, skulls in the refrigerator. When he got himself together after he peed himself, probably, he yelled to his partner to cuff the man and place him under arrest.
Holy crap.
This man that was at first this rational man suddenly turns on him and fights off the one cop. The other's trying to cuff him, and then when the one subdues him, the other one goes to the refrigerator and opens it.
That's right. I remember this from the movie.
And he shrieks loudly at the face that's staring out at him, and he slams the door and yells, "There's a fucking head in the refrigerator."
A fucking head in the refrigerator.
So
I was going to stay home tonight on Monday night and watch Evening Shade, Major Dad,
right.
Murphy Brown, and Designing Women, which were on that night.
So
funny we're talking about that. But no, now there's a head in the fridge.
They arrest him, and they go through the apartment, and they see it's a small one-bedroom flat, and it was neat and clean, especially for a bachelor. And his pet fish were very well cared for. The fish tank was clean. But the smell of decomposition was overwhelming, which is why
But not till they opened the fridge?
No, I guess it was always there. But to me, police should know what that smell is. The freezer had 3 more heads in it, stored neatly in plastic bags. And then there's a door that leads to the bedroom closet and bath, which had been outfitted with a deadbolt lock. So this reporter that was on the scene said that in the back of the closet there was a metal stock pot that contained decomposed hands and a penis. And on the shelf above the kettle were 2 skulls. Also in the closet, containers of ethyl alcohol, chloroform, and formaldehyde, along with some glass jars holding male genitalia preserved in formaldehyde.
Why? What was he going to do with those?
Polaroid photos taken by Dahmer at various stages of his victims' deaths. So obviously this is about Jeffrey Dahmer. Is what
Jeffrey
we're talking about. This was
Dahmer.
1991. One of the Polaroids showed a man's head with the flesh still intact lying in a sink. Another showed a victim cut open from the neck to the groin like a deer gutted. Some of them were his
Why do you
victims
love this
before
stuff?
murdered in various erotic and bondage poses. The police, the county medical examiner, the media, families of the missing young men, the entire city of Milwaukee, and the whole world tried to understand what had really happened in apartment 213.
Yeah, we're
Jeffrey
getting this.
Lionel Dahmer was an American serial killer and a sex offender. He murdered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991.
Now, he was a known sex offender before he murdered them?
Yes. The majority of the murders occurred between 1987 and 1991.
Wait, where did this happen? Wisconsin?
Yes.
Where in Wisconsin?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
So his murders
Packer
involved
fans.
rape, dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism. He was born in West Allis, Wisconsin. Joyce Annette and Lionel Herbert Dahmer, who was an analytical chemist. And he had a brother named David,
He was okay?
and he was okay.
What's going on with him?
So Jeffrey was a normal child. He had a hernia at one point that
That explains it.
they said his personality changed after that.
Really?
He got real withdrawn and uncommunicative,
Because of his hernia?
I guess.
A hernia does that?
And he didn't have any interest in hobbies or social interactions.
It's that damn hernia.
He biked around his neighborhood looking for dead animals, which he dissected at home or in the woods near his home. In one instance, he put a dog's head on a stake. So there's some early warning signs going on here.
Because of that hernia.
Though, yeah. When he went to high school, he was an outcast. He became kind of a cult figure among some of his classmates.
Now,
Because
you don't mean he was Andre 3000.
No, I don't.
He was an outcast.
He began drinking in his teens. He was an alcoholic by the time his
Wait
high
a
school
second.
graduation.
You said he was an outcast, but he started what? Getting a following?
He started getting a cult following because he would make fun of his mother's interior decorator who had cerebral palsy.
That's how you get a cult following?
I guess that's what it says. That's what I read.
Oh, great guy.
So then his parents divorced in 1977. He went to Ohio State University but dropped out after one quarter.
Oh, he's an Ohio State and a Packer
Yeah, that's right.
fan.
So one night, he was in 1978. He was driving back to his mother's when he picked up a hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. The two of them go back to Jeffrey's to drink some beer and smoke some pot, and that seems that Jeff must have really liked Steve, because when Hicks said that it was time that he headed home, Dahmer decided he didn't want his new friend going anywhere, so he picked up a weightlifting dumbbell and struck Hicks in the back of the head, and then strangled him. He then dragged the body into the crawl space under the house, where it stayed for a few days. Eventually the smell became strong, so he went down and cut the remains into pieces, placing them in small plastic bags, and then threw the bags in the bushes behind the house.
That's how it started.
Yeah. After a while, he began to worry about the neighborhood kids digging up the remains, so he dug them up and smashed the bones into pieces, which he scattered around the woods. So that was his first kill. And then over the next 9 years, he was able to control any urges to kill again.
So the 70s was his first kill.
Yeah.
Huh? So for
And then in 9 years, he didn't do any. So he joined the United States Army for shortly. He lasted only a couple years because he
I forgot to ask, did you kill any dudes?
Yeah.
And chop them up into pieces?
was alcoholism, made him drop out. And then after his military career ended, he decided he was a homosexual. And became a regular at Milwaukee's gay bars. He was arrested for flashing his penis at two 12-year-old boys in a park and then masturbating.
Well, that's standard now.
Yeah,
That's
really.
every actor in Hollywood does that now.
Apparently. He was placed on probation until September 9th, 1987 for the incident. And then just 6 days after his probation ended, he
You
started
have probation
killing
for
again.
masturbating from children? That's all I get?
I guess.
Probation?
I know.
Don't do that again. Stop doing that.
Stop it.
Hey, guy who maybe will murder a bunch of people and eat their bodies.
Well, they don't know that
Stop
yet.
jacking off in front of kids.
So
That's it. They just probation.
So just 6 days after the probation ended, he starts to kill again. So on September 15th, 1987, he spent the day drinking at a gay bar named Club 219 and met up with a gay man named Steve Twomey.
Steve Twomey, y'all. It's Steve Twomey in the house.
Hey.
Stop.
He's a victim.
Oh, he killed him? Oh, shit.
They,
Sorry. But
they
I was just like,
chatted with each other for a few hours and eventually left together. They went to a hotel and rented a room. And then
Steve Twomey was so cool.
Dahmer claims he can't remember what happened once they got to the hotel, only that he drank a lot. And he wasn't even sure if they had sex or anything. But when he woke up, Twomey was dead. And it was like he beat him up and strangled
So
him.
he thinks he blacked out. And killed
Yeah.
him.
After this, he went out and bought a large suitcase, which he then stuffed the body inside. Caught a taxi back to Grandma's house with the suitcase with the body in it.
Back to his grandma's house?
Yeah, he lived with his grandma in the basement.
Had a suitcase with a body in it.
And he gets
Steve Twelmo
Then he gets in a cab.
is in his
Guys,
Steve's
will you
in my
help me with the
suitcase?
suitcase? Can you see that? That's a heavy
Steve.
suitcase.
Oh, and it probably smells like... It's got to smell terrible.
I know. Once he gets to Grandma's, he cuts up the body and puts it pieces in the garbage bags and puts it out by the curb with the rest of the day's trash.
Oh, my God.
So he didn't even...
You know somebody found that in the
I don't
garbage. You're
know.
like, what is it? Whose foot?
Then
Look at
on
his nipple.
Then on January 16th, 1988, he approached a young male prostitute named James Dockstader, who was 14.
A young male prostitute, 14-year-old
Yep.
male prostitute. Poor
And he
kid.
offered James money to make a video with him. So Dockstader agrees, so he took him home to
He had to have money to make a video in 1988.
I know. So Jeff took him home to his basement room at Grandma's. Then he gave him a sleeping drug, and once he passed
Bill
out...
Cosby style.
Yep, he strangled him once he passed out. And then he stripped the body of all his flesh using acid and smashed up the bones with a sledgehammer.
If only he had been on picture pages, he would have got away with it.
I think that was 70s. I don't think picture pages was 90s.
No, I'm just saying. Bill Cosby got away with it.
Oh,
We don't
'cause
ca-
Big
We don't
Cosby was
care
on
that he
picture
drugs
pages.
everybody because he was on picture pages.
That's right. That's
If he
true.
hadn't been on picture pages, he'd be in jail. But picture pages are great.
Talking about. So then on March
That's Fat Albert.
on March 24th, 1988,
Picture pages,
Stop
picture
it.
pages.
Stop
Time
it.
to get your crayons and your pencils.
Stop it.
Motherfucker. Sorry.
on March 24th, 1988, he met Richard Guerrero at a bar called the Phoenix.
Wait a minute. In '88, that's when Hacksaw Jim Duggan won the first ever Royal Rumble.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. so you know.
Guerrero was broke.
Eddie Guerrero.
No, Richard Guerrero.
Richard
so
Guerrero.
Jeff offered him some money if he'd come back to his place to make a video. So Guerrero agrees.
Video.
Once they go back to Dahmer's apartment, they have oral sex, and then Jeff offers him a drink, and Richard
blow each
accepts.
other.
Shortly after passing out, Richard was strangled, dismembered, and disposed of.
How did he dispose of him? We
So
don't know.
about this, no, I don't know. About this time, Grandma starts to worry about the smell coming from the basement, because this is all when he's living at
I
Grandma's
think
house.
my grandson needs to start using deodorant.
When she,
I think he's of age. I should buy him some Old Spice.
So
Peggy, you wouldn't believe the smell.
so when
Peggy,
she tells
it's B.O. It's bad,
she
Peggy.
tells Lionel, Dad, he goes down and he inspects the room and he finds a black sticky
Wait,
residue.
who's Lionel?
He's the chemist, the dad, Jeffrey's dad.
Oh,
Lionel.
came over to Grandma's house.
Yeah, to inspect the room.
Lionel?
And
It smells so bad. I talked to Peggy about it. It smells terrible. Go down there, Lionel. So
So-
he goes down and what?
He finds this black sticky residue similar to what acid does to flesh.
What's all this?
And he's a chemist, so he kind of
Oh.
knows. So he
so it's more
questions
like,
this.
what is this substance
Yes.
that I'm oddly familiar with as a chemist?
So he questions his
Lionel.
son about this, and then Jeff says he was experimenting with animals.
Jeff, what are you
So,
doing?
you know, Lionel never gave a shit what Jeff did.
What are you
He
doing,
just
Jeffrey?
accepted this, didn't bother worrying about it.
messing with some animals, Dad. I don't
But
know.
Grandma was done. She didn't care what he was doing. She said, "Get out." So-
Peggy and I talked about it, and you need to go. The
Yeah.
ladies from Bunko are going to just die when they smell. You get out of here. I can't take this anymore with the dead animals. And Lionel, you get him out of here, Lionel.
So he gets his own place, and
Yeah.
just 24 hours after moving into his new apartment, he was in trouble with the police because he, had conned a Laotian boy named
Laotian.
Keeson Synthesamaphone, who was 13.
That's a fake name.
That's definitely right.
That's not.
He
He's
was-
a samophone.
He was 13, and he conned him into coming up to his apartment, and then once there, he drugged and molested him, but the boy escaped. So he reported to the police.
God, the poor kids from Laos. They come
I
here
know.
seeking a new life, and then Jeffrey
And
Dahmer
Jeffrey's-
molests them all.
Well,
God, come here to
and
USA.
The thing
get molested by a Wisconsinite.
the thing that's interesting about Dahmer too is that almost all serial killers will only kill within their own race, and he almost exclusively killed like Asian,
Oh, and
Pan
black
Pacific,
people.
and black
Yeah.
people. Yeah,
So he only killed other races.
yeah, he did.
And you said
Except
most,
for the hitchhiker, the very first one
the
was
first
a white.
one. You
was a
say
white guy.
most serial killers
Almost all.
kill their own race
Yeah,
only?
yeah, that's right.
Huh. Wonder
So,
why that is.
the boy reports it to the police, and he was charged with sexual assault and enticing a child for immoral purposes, and he got a week in jail before
A
getting
week,
released on
because
bail.
Back then, you could
my
rape
God.
anybody.
Well, he
whoever
hasn't
you
been
want.
sentenced yet. On January 30th, 1990, he was found guilty, but sentence
Oh, of
wouldn't
the-
take place for another 4
Of
months.
molesting the child.
Yeah.
Oh,
So then
still.
on March 25th, 1990, he met Anthony Sears.
Oh, what date?
March 25th, 1990.
Okay, we're not on anyone yet. Okay.
At a gay bar. Took him back to Grandma's because he assumed
meanwhile,
the police
Eileen
were
Warnos is on the loose because that was from our
that's
last
right.
episode.
So he took his back to his grandma's house because he assumed the police were watching his apartment. And so once there, they had sex, and afterward, Dahmer made him a drink, murdered him, decided to keep the skull as a trophy. So Grandma just can't win. She just,
Was she
he kept
sleeping?
coming back.
Peggy, I think he's in my house. I smell it, Peggy.
So then, at his sexual assault and enticing a child for immoral purposes sentencing on May 23rd,
Yeah.
he pleaded with the judge for leniency, saying he was an alcoholic and a homosexual with sexual problems. And the judge decided to sentence him to 5 years probation and 1 year in a halfway house so he could continue to work. So,
Whoa. Little
great
did
job,
he know
Judge.
He was murdering.
So after serving
It's
his
because
time
he's white. I bet if he was black, that wouldn't be the case.
after serving his time in the halfway house, he rented a place at Oxford Apartments, which is the infamous apartment 213.
Oh, this is where he got us.
And just
the
2 weeks
murder.
after moving in to the infamous apartment, which has been demolished since this, obviously, he met Ray Smith at Club 219. Ray was a newcomer to Milwaukee and seemed to run into the wrong guy at the wrong time. So Jeff asked Ray back to his place to pose for some pictures. He accepted, and
Is this 91 now?
no.
Oh.
Jeff offers him a drink. Ray passes out. He gets strangled.
Have a
He
drink, Ray.
strips the body and had necrophilic sex with it.
Oh, dead guy. Yeah.
This was the first corpse Dahmer admitted to having sex with, but definitely not the last.
It was a fresh corpse, so.
So once he had that,
Okay.
once he did that, he dismembered the body, threw it out with the trash, all except for the skull. He kept that and painted it like silver or something.
Yep, throw me out with the trash.
And preserved it, and that marked the beginning of his collection of human souvenirs.
Oh,
so that was
that's
the
what he
first
served.
thing he saved. On June 14th, 1990, he met Eddie Smith.
Eddie Smith, y'all.
Eddie readily accepted Dahmer's advances, went back to Jeff's apartment where they had oral sex. Afterward, Jeff offered Eddie a drink. So
There's a
he's just
lot
a
of
regular
oral
Bill
sex.
Cosby with his drinks.
Yeah, he's
Eddie passes
basically
out.
Bill Cosby,
Jeff
but
strangles
hey,
him.
He's Bill Cosby without the picture pages.
Well, you know, we don't know Bill Cosby hasn't done these things. It's
Right.
dismembered bodies and thrown them out.
But it's fine because he did picture pages, so
So
all's forgiven.
So then, July 8th, 1990, he decides not to drug somebody. He's going to try to mix it up. So he had a 15-year-old Hispanic kid posing for pictures. When he picked up a mallet and tried to hit the boy in the head, the kid fought back, eventually escaped. And this kid went to the police, too.
And he was Hispanic.
Yep, but when he begged police not to tell his...
Was he a member of Menudo, maybe?
Well, he begged the
You're
police
big,
not to tell his foster parents he was gay. And so then the police decided to leave the whole thing alone.
Oh,
and they didn't even
no,
investigate.
because everyone frowned upon gay. God,
I know.
because of homophobia, this guy
Yep.
kept going.
So then, September 3rd, 1990, he picked up Ernest Miller, took him home, had intercourse
Ernest the
with,
Cat Miller? That was a wrestler.
drugged him, and then changed
Ernest
it
the
up a
Cat
little
Miller
bit
would've
again.
tore him up.
He didn't strangle Miller; he cut his throat instead.
Had to be a different Ernest Miller.
And then, after he was dead, he slices off his biceps and puts them in the freezer for some reason.
What?
And then, upon taking all the flesh from the bone, decides to keep the entire skeleton this time instead of. So he went from "I'm going to keep just a skull" to "I'm going to keep this whole thing."
Well, I got to put the biceps in the freezer.
And that's what is that
Guess
about?
I'll put this over. I got to put the biceps in the freezer.
So
Like,
this time,
what was the internal monologue? Was it like,
I mean, who knows?
I want to jack off on a squirrel? I got to put these biceps in the freezer.
So it was around this
go-
time that his neighbors start to complain
Take a shit on my
because
grandma's.
the putrid smell
hat.
is coming from his apartment.
Sorry, what was that?
This is around this time his neighbors start to complain about the smell.
Those neighbors need to mind their own business. God.
So Dahmer tells the landlord his fridge is broken and that's why it smells.
Oh, that actually makes
He
sense.
says he's going to.
Oh, that's why it smells like Arby's in here.
Yeah. October 1990, Jeff met David Thomas. They were drinking in Dahmer's apartment when Jeff gave him his special drink.
He needs to lay down on the drinking. That's too much drinking.
So Jeff didn't want to kill Thomas for some reason, but he was worried he might be upset if he woke up that Jeff had drugged him. So he decided the best thing to do would be
Wait,
kill
why
him
didn't
anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know. He just didn't want to kill him.
That's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said.
One of those guys I didn't want to kill.
Yeah.
Not that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy.
Just this one
the
guy.
one guy, the one time.
So he says, I better just kill him. So
Oh,
this time he films the whole dismemberment and takes photos of his severed head in various positions in the apartment.
He's probably like,
And
nobody's ever gonna
Thomas's
catch me.
sister later had to use those photos to identify him. The photos of his head all around his
head all dismembered.
Isn't that sick?
That's awful.
On February 18th, 91,
Here we go. We're in 1991. We're going to take a deep dive.
1991.
he met Curtis
1991
Straughter.
timelines.
Curtis wanted to be a model, so Jeff mentions he's going to pose for pictures again.
Hold on. Who's this on February 18th, 1991?
Curtis Straughter.
So we need to stop and pause so we can all picture what February 18th of 1991 was. The timeline of this is Whitney Houston, All the Man That I Need was on the radio. CNC Music Factory, Gonna Make You Sweat. Everybody dance now. Timmy T, One More Try. I didn't know how much
All right.
I love you. Mariah Carey Someday was on. No, this is the timeline. This
I
is this is
understand.
the show. The Doors movie was the big movie in the theaters, and this was also Monday, a Monday night. So Fresh Prince was on, Blossom was on, and the specific Blossom episode that was on that night was Thanks for the Memorex, where Blossom watches home movies. So that's what was going on.
All
If you
right.
think back to those things, that's what was happening.
On February 18th, 1991, this is Curtis Straughter. Curtis wanted to be a model, so
Yeah, this is February 18th.
Jeff says, why don't you come pose for pictures? And so he was strangled while giving Jeff oral sex. Jeffrey kept the skull and painted it to preserve it, and he also decided to keep hands and a penis as well.
This
And
is
this
when he
is-
started keeping the hands and the penises.
Yeah. April 7th, 91, he met Errol Lindsay.
April 7th, the top songs were Gloria Estefan's Coming Out of the Dark, London Beat, I've Been Thinking About You, and the top movie was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. And this, April 7th, was 2 weeks after WrestleMania 7 when Sergeant Slaughter defends his title against Hulk Hogan. And Sergeant Slaughter, Amy, just so you know, this was during the Gulf War, and the WWF liked to copy off what was going on, and they made Sergeant Slaughter turn to the Iraqi side, and Hulk Hogan was
Oh.
the real American that fought him, and he won the title back. And right before he pinned Sergeant Slaughter, he rips an Iraqi flag in half,
God, that's so
and then he
dumb.
wins the belt. And then Alex Trebek was the guest ring announcer, and then this happened April 7th.
And then, yeah, he met Earl Lindsay, and he was 19 at a local bus stop. He was paid to come back to the apartment, offered him a drink, and he accepted.
He was
and
paid.
Yeah,
So it
he was
was
a
like
prostitute. So then, before you know it, Jeffrey's, going down on a corpse. And he kept the skull
How many gay
again.
prostitutes are in Wisconsin? You would
not,
think
not
Wisconsin.
as many as there used to be.
You think it's just a bunch of old, like kind of.
Well, Milwaukee's a big city, though.
I know, but I think of all of Wisconsin as just hefty white ladies in sweaters.
It's pretty
with
much
eating
it.
cheese.
Then, on May 24th, 1991, he met Tony Hughes.
May 24th, 1991 was a Friday night,
Mm-hmm.
and that was on ABC. It was TJI Friday. You remember that? Full House, Dinosaurs, Perfect Strangers, and Family Matters.
Yep.
They were all reruns because we're in May. It's like Memorial Day weekend probably. And Fox aired a show called World's Greatest Stunts. And the top movie was Hudson Hawk. And the top song was Mariah Carey's I Don't Want to Cry.
Okay. So he meets him at Club 219 again, back to his old club that he likes so much. Hughes was deaf, and so Dahmer wrote his offer on paper and handed it to him, $50 to pose for some pictures
Oh, my
and watch some
gosh.
videos. And he takes him back and drugs him and strangles him, and then he leaves the corpse around his bedroom for a few days before dismembering it.
So now he's just getting sloppy.
Yeah.
He's
yep.
like, just come on, I videotape this shit. I'm leaving
Yep.
stuff everywhere. Why is
You
nobody
know.
finding me?
Then on May 27th, do you have that one?
Yep. This was a Monday again, so reruns of all those shows. The
This
Fresh
is like
Prince
3
and all
days later. Like, he's not taking much of a breath
that.
here.
It's just a couple days. Yeah, this is from Friday to Monday. This is the Monday after the weekend that he just started by watching Full House and murdering a guy.
Yeah.
This is Monday. Fox had a TV movie called Blood Ties about a vampire family who tries to fit in Long Beach, California.
That sounds awful.
Mariah Carey's I Don't Want to Cry is still number one, but Extremes More Than Words has come up to number two, and Color Me Bad. I Want to Sex You Up
It
was number three.
Such a bad song.
I think it's fair to think that Jeffrey Dahmer was listening to that.
He probably was, yeah. So,
Same date.
May 27th, 1991,
That jogs your memory.
this kid was 14, and he was running for his life, trying to escape this apartment where this creepy blonde guy had slipped him some kind of powerful drug, and he was started to come around just as the guy had left the apartment.
Bill
So
Cosby'd him.
he escaped. it took all his strength he had to get up and get to the door. He was so disoriented and
drugged.
panicked. He was completely naked. He didn't even care. So this was his only chance to survive. So he was just before 2 a.m. And so he's out wandering on the streets.
So he struggles with Jeffrey first?
No, Jeffrey left the apartment where
Oh,
he
he
woke
left.
up.
Sorry, yeah.
So he's like stumbling around the neighborhood. This woman, Sandra Smith, calls 911 to report him running around naked. She didn't know who he was, but she knew he was injured and scared. And
Naked.
the paramedics
Naked
get
and
there.
afraid?
Yep. The paramedics get there, put a blanket around him. 2 police officers arrive and
Here, naked guy.
try to understand what's going on with them.
Just blanket. What's going on? Tell me about it. Tell me about a naked guy.
So the woman who called the police were standing near the boy when the police arrived, and then the tall blonde man
911, what's
shows
your
back up.
emergency? There's a naked guy running around. I think
So
he's-
Jeffrey
okay,
comes
but-
back home while this is going on.
Oh,
and
while all the
he's-
police are
comes
there?
Up, yeah, and he comes up and
Oh, guys, you're in my house.
he says, "No, he's my boyfriend. He's just really drunk." And the ladies were getting mad because they thought, "No, something's wrong." And then Conorick was just too drugged. He couldn't say anything. He wasn't able to contradict the guy. And
boy.
Dahmer gave the police a picture ID. And the 2 young women, they kept trying to intervene because they had seen the man trying to resist him before the police arrived. They were angry and upset. The police were ignoring him and listening to the white man instead.
Of course.
Yep.
White man was right.
And so, just to be on the safe side, the 2 officers went with the boy and the man back to his apartment. The apartment smelled bad, but it was also very neat. And Conorick's clothes were folded and placed on the sofa. And there was a couple of photos of him in black bikini briefs. So Conorick sat quietly on the sofa, still unable to talk. It's not even clear he understood the explanation that Dahmer was giving to the police. He was apologizing that his lover had caused a disturbance and promised it wouldn't happen again.
Oh, no.
And the police believed him. They had no reason not to. He's
'Cause he's a white
well-spoken,
guy.
intelligent, calm.
Pretty fly for a white guy.
And the Asian kid was apparently drunk and incoherent. And they thought, oh, we're not going to get in the middle of this
He's also
lovers'
Asian.
quarrel. So they left.
And they were probably like, these gay dudes, we don't know about
Yep.
them.
So they left the apartment with him
Homophobia.
sitting still quietly on the sofa.
What a horrible world we live in.
They just thought there were more pressing
1991.
things for them to do than get involved in this lovers' quarrel.
Oh,
So
Wisconsin.
that was the end of him. Then
Come on,
on
Wisconsin.
June 30th,
That's why I'm not. That's why I don't like the Packers.
Yep.
Is all this.
on June 30th, 1991, he goes to Chicago for the Gay Pride Day.
Ooh, pride.
While at the bus
But it
depot,
was not nearly as good in '99 as
No.
it is now.
While at the bus depot, he met Matt Turner, another guy who wanted
I've been
to
to
be
that
a
bus
model.
depot.
He talked him into coming back to Milwaukee with him, so he pays for Greyhound bus tickets for both of them, and they're soon go.
I've been on that Greyhound bus.
Once they get to his apartment, same thing: drugs him and strangles him, cuts off his head, wraps it in a plastic bag, puts it in the freezer.
Wait a minute. What happened to his lover, the Asian guy?
Well, he killed him. I mean,
He did?
yeah, the police left him there.
Yeah, but then he died too. We
Yeah,
know
oh,
that
yeah.
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the victims.
Oh yeah.
He never got away.
So then on July 4th, 91, he
All right.
decides to go
4th of
back to
July.
Chicago. And while he's there, he meets Jeremiah Weinberger.
This is just 1 year after Eileen Warnos was having that awesome 4th of July
Yeah,
last
that's
year.
right. And this guy was 23.
Okay.
And he even asked his roommate what he thought of Jeffrey. And the roommate was like, he seems all right, whatever. So Jeremiah decides to go back to Milwaukee with Jeff again, pays for the Greyhound bus tickets. Once they get there, they have sex, and Jeremiah spends the night. But when he got sick of having sex with Jeff, he said he was going to go home. Jeff said fine, then offered him a farewell drink, which was drugged. And then he strangled him, and he was one of the heads found in the freezer. On July 12th, 1991, he meets Oliver Lacey, who's 23. They go back to Jeffrey's apartment, have a drink, fool around. Jeffrey strangles him. Then, for the first time, he decides to get into more necrophilic acts.
I thought he already did that.
Well, he was doing oral sex with the bodies before, and now he decides to go full on.
Wait, he was sucking them off while they're
Yes.
dead? But you can't.
Yes.
They
I
don't-
don't know. I don't
How-
want to think about that.
What?
So then he...
No, this is where it stops for me. Everything
No.
else makes sense, but why are you blowing a dead guy?
I don't know.
It can't blow you.
No, that's right.
No, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Everything else is fine.
No.
Putting the dead head in the freezer is fine,
Yeah,
but
I'm not-
blowing it?
No, I'm not
So when
thinking
you say
about that. I'm not
you
going to think
blow
about
a
that
dead
right
guy.
now. So then he slices off the right bicep and ate it. And that was the first time he cannibalized.
Oh, that's
someone.
when he first started. Oh, he wasn't eating them before this?
No.
Oh. One time I saw a piece of graffiti that said, Dave S blows dead bears.
Maybe that's true.
So
then
you can't blow a dead bear.
He
So,
placed his
yeah.
head in the fridge next to an open box of Arm & Hammer baking soda.
Well, that'll help clean.
That's right. And
Keep
his
it
heart in the
smelling,
freezer
okay.
to eat later.
Oh,
And he also put other body parts in the freezer and the rest of it in the trash.
I guess I thought he was eating this stuff all along because
He
he had
kept
the
the
freezer.
entire skeleton. And it was at this time that he was suspended from his job at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. I forgot to tell you, he worked at a chocolate
all this
factory
time he
the
worked
whole
at a
time.
chocolate
So if
factory.
you've eaten Ambrosia chocolate in
Jeffrey,
the 90s,
we're gonna have to just cut ties with you. It's
Yeah.
it's the penises you keep putting and the biceps you keep putting in the
and let's just hope that Ambrosia.
chocolate.
What if we
that's
ate
frowned
it?
upon.
What if we ate that chocolate
I love chocolate.
in the 90s, Ambrosia chocolate? What if we ate it and he had touched it?
It's generally frowned upon to put human biceps in a chocolate.
That's what you think.
Stop bringing in penises
Yeah.
and juggling them and putting them in a chocolate. It's frowned upon, Stephen. We're
That's
gonna have
right.
to let you go.
So-
I'll be Jeffrey.
So he had spent too many days off work at home, so he got real mad when he got fired.
Wait, that's what he got fired for? Not coming into work?
Yes.
Not for anything?
They didn't know anything else.
Not for killing a bunch of gay dudes?
So then on July 19th, 1991, he meets Joseph Braidhoft at a local bus stop.
Okay, this is the guy that's going to save the day.
No,
Joseph
it's-
Braid. No?
It's not.
jeez.
He meets him. It was pouring down rain,
Come on, Joe.
and
Take care of things.
he had a 6-pack of beer on him, so they decided to go back to Jeff's to party. Once there, they had oral sex. Then Dahmer drugs and strangles him. Sleeps with the body for the next few days until the head became infested with maggots.
Oh, so he
Ooh.
banged it until
Yes.
the maggots. Huh?
Yes.
No, he decided not to freeze this one.
Well,
or
he
dismember
cleans it and puts it in the freezer with the heads of the other two guys that are in there. And he put
He
the
must
torso.
have really liked to bang that dead guy.
I guess he placed the torso in a 57-gallon barrel in the bedroom. At this point, he seems to have very little control and care very little, and he starts getting sloppy. And
You think something was maybe wrong with him, Jeffrey Dahmer? This doesn't seem like normal behavior to me.
no, I think there's something wrong with him. Okay, so now we are to our final victim that I started the top of the hour
Oh, see, I
with.
thought the last guy was the
No,
was
Tracy
the
Edwards. Tracy Edwards.
Tracy Edwards.
So Tracy Edwards was the story at the top, and that is how he got caught. So his bail was originally set at $1 million.
What date was this?
July 22nd, 1991.
Oh, July 22nd, 1991.
They set his bail for $1 million. And then on August 6th, it was raised to $5 million when 8 more murder charges were added. In the end, he had 15 murder charges against him. The longest sentence he muttered at any of the preliminary hearings was, "I understand, Your Honor," when the judge asked if he understood the charges. On July 13th, 92, he ignored his lawyer's advice and changed his plea to guilty, but that he was insane. And according to the Don Davis and the Milwaukee Murders, which is a book, the declaration turns the case on its head. Now, instead of having to prove his man did not commit the murders, the defense attorneys would unroll one of the goriest tapestries ever seen in an American courtroom. His task was to convince the jury that Dahmer was crazy because only an insane person would do the things he did. 2 detectives took turns reading the 160-page confession. It was a catalog of sexual perversions. Detective Dennis Murphy stated that Dahmer felt a tremendous amount of guilt because of his actions. He felt thoroughly evil. Then he quoted from Dahmer's own confession. "It's hard for me to believe that a human being could have done what I've done, but I know that I did." He claimed that his fear of being caught was overwhelmed by his excitement of being completely in control.
It's hard to believe that a human being could do what I've done.
The battle of psychiatrists over whether he was legally responsible and able to control himself seemed to confuse the jury. The attorney drew a chart for the jury, which he read them off quickly. Skulls in locker, cannibalism, sexual urges, drilling, making
testicles.
zombies, necrophilia,
Eating
drinking alcohol,
biceps.
trying to create a shrine,
Keeping
lobotomies,
penises.
defleshing, calling taxidermists, going to graveyards,
Banging a dead body until maggots.
masturbating. That's the last one he says. Was
Not
masturbating.
creating picture pages. Masturbating?
Yeah, he says masturbating. The last
Also,
of all of those
masturbation
things.
is just the same as all
Yeah,
of this.
this is Jeffrey Dahmer, a runaway train on a track of madness.
Not creating picture pages.
And then the prosecutor rebutted. He wasn't a runaway train. He was the engineer. He was satisfying his extraordinary sexual cravings. Ladies and gentlemen, he's fooled a lot of people. Please don't let this murderous killer fool you.
But he is white, so...
Yeah, the jury deliberated for 5 hours, decided he did not deserve to spend the rest of his life in a hospital, but in a prison cell.
Boom.
On all 15 counts, he was guilty. He wrote an apology to the judge, covering a 13-year bloodbath. He said, "Your Honor, it is now over. This has never been a case of trying to get free. I don't even want freedom. Frankly, I wanted death for myself. This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did, but not for the reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. The doctors have told me about my sickness, and now I have some peace. I know how much harm I have caused. Thank God there will be no more harm that I can do. I believe that only the Lord Jesus Christ can save me from my sins. I ask for no consideration. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms.
All of this while Summertime was the number 5 song on the radio by Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
He adjusted very well to prison life at the Columbia Correctional Institute in Portage, Wisconsin.
He's probably better there than he was anywhere else.
Well,
right?
initially he wasn't part of the general population of the prison because that would have jeopardized his safety.
Can't put him in Gen Pop.
As it was, he was...
I saw Orange is the New Black. He would have been toast.
Yeah. As it was, he was attacked July 3rd, 1994, while attending a chapel service by a Cuban who he had never seen before. While in prison, he was sued twice for $3 billion, and even though he had no money at all, he was a model prisoner.
Yeah.
And he convinced the prison authorities to allow him more contact with other inmates.
Okay.
He was able to eat in communal areas, and he was given some janitorial work to do with other teams of inmates. Then, on the morning of November 28th, 1994, he was working bathroom cleanup detail, paired up with 2 highly dangerous men. Jesse Anderson, a white man who had murdered his wife and blamed it on a black man. And
So they all fucking do that.
Christopher Scarver, a black delusional schizophrenic who thought that he was the son of God, who was in prison for first-degree murder. So it's not difficult to imagine how Scarver views Dahmer, who's butchered all these black men, and Anderson. It was a disastrous combination. So 20 minutes after they started, a prison guard came by to check on them and found Dahmer lying face down in a pool of blood with his head bashed in.
Wait, what were they doing together?
They were cleaning the bathroom.
Cleaning bathrooms?
The other white inmate was lying in a pool of blood in one of the showers. So upon arriving at the hospital, Dahmer was pronounced dead.
So this black dude killed both of them?
Mm-hmm.
Good for him.
Jesse Anderson died shortly after from having his head bashed against the floor and walls repeatedly. They compared his injuries to those of a car accident.
Man.
Scarver claimed, God told me to do it. At any rate,
Probably did, man.
he received another life sentence for his actions. Jeffrey was cremated, and his parents,
He's the son of God.
who are divorced,
You
each
can do that
received
to him. He's the
half
son
of his remains after a court battle over his ashes.
We probably have the son of God in prison. We
So his parents had a court battle over his ashes, and they each received half of his ashes.
Jeffrey Dahmer's?
Yeah.
What did they want him for?
I don't know.
To probably
Maybe they're the
murder
same way.
them, to probably eat them. And
Yep. So that's the life and times of Mr. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer.
And that was 1991, folks.
Yep. I remember when I heard about that. I was fascinated. I
Yeah,
couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I know. You've mentioned it every day of our marriage. Jeffrey Dahmer this, Jeffrey Dahmer that.
That's not true.
My wife loves murderers and murderers.
So this has gone on long enough.
Yeah, all I need to do is splice in some what happened in wrestling in 1991.
All right. Well, while you're doing that, I'm going to hit the can. This has been another episode of American Timelines.
American Timelines. And we thank you. And this is Grover Cleveland Steamer.
And Amy, and that was Joe.
Signing off.